Okay, guys, this is Unit 1, Lesson 11, Reasonable Answers. It's just using estimation to double-check your answers, especially when thinking about fractions. You can kind of decide if your answer is even reasonable or what I like to call makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then you probably need to do some rethinking. So let's take a look at some sample problems and think about our estimation. So, for example, if we've got 2/5, which is less than half, and 4/7, which is just over half, a reasonable estimate for this would actually be about 1/2. Again, because a half plus a half might be about a whole. Okay, so I'm going to put 1/2 up here. And then I'm going to actually solve out. Common denominator is 35, multiplying to 5 times 7 times 7. So I get 14/35 plus times by 5 times by 5, 20/35. So my sum is actually 34/35, which, as you can tell, is really close to 1/2. So that means my estimate was fairly accurate. When I look at something like this, I instantly start doing mental math. I think about this is going to end up being, the 3 here is going to end up being 6/20, multiplying by 2. So 13 minus 6. I might come up with that I'm going to get 12/20. Sorry, it's going to be lower than 12/20. I might come up with that I would get 6/20 just because I know that mental math right off the bat. But it's going to be somewhere around there. Then, like I said, I'm going to work this out. I'm going to multiply times 2 times 2. I get 6/20. 13/20 minus 6/20 is actually 7/20. Again, moving on, I'm going to look at 13/18. So I'm going to guess it's about a whole. So 1/2 plus 1/2 would be 1 1/2 as my estimate. If I wasn't exactly sure, I could think, well, 13, I could call this a half as well. So I would accept 1 1/2 here or 1, either way. Again, my common denominator is 18. So I'm going to multiply by 9, multiply by 9. So now I have 13/18 plus 9/18. And I get 1 4/18, or better answer is 1 2/9. Okay. Again, just watch whether you're adding or subtracting when you're estimating your differences. So this one asks us to estimate to the nearest whole number, so we're only using a whole number. Oh, this one said to estimate to wholes, halves, 0. So this one probably would have been 0. Anyway, okay, moving on, guys. Estimate the sum or the difference by rounding each mixed number to the whole number, and then find the actual sum or difference. So I would estimate this one as 4 minus 2. My estimate's going to be 2. 6 minus, or 6 plus 6. I'm going to estimate that to be 12, so I bumped this one up. 7, that's almost 8, minus 4, my estimate's going to be 4. Okay, now I'm going to actually do some solving here. Find my common denominators. I always have to have that common denominator, so 2, I'm going to multiply by 4 to get my 8. Multiply my numerator, because whatever I do the denominator, I got to do to the numerator. So now I'm at 4/8. So 5/8 minus 4/8 is 1/8. 3 minus 1 is 2, so 2 1/8, and that is fairly close to 2. Okay. Again, common denominator. My common denominator here is 36. So I'm going to multiply my 9's by 4. 4 times 4, 16. So I've got 6 and 16, 36. Okay, and then 36, 21. Okay, and I'm adding, so 16 plus 21, 37. Hopefully you're seeing the problem with this right away, which is equal to 1 and 136. And then I got to take my whole numbers. 5 plus 6 is 11. 11 plus 1 is 12. So we're going to take that plus 11. Okay, so now I get 12 and 136, which is really close to 12 whole. Okay. Again, moving on, my common denominator on these is going to be 90. Why don't you guys pause it and actually work out? I'm going to tell you common denominator is 90. So what do I multiply these numbers by to get 90? That's a huge common denominator. Sorry about that. Work that out. Pause the video. Okay, welcome back. You guys should have found that it was 3 and 49 90ths, which again is really close to that 40. So I can, or that 4. So I know my estimate is pretty close. Okay, reasonable or unreasonable? 7 plus 7 and 8/15 is that reasonable for 2 and 1/5 plus 5 and 1/3? It's very reasonable because using rounding, I would get 2 plus 7, which is, oops, sorry, 2 plus 5, excuse me, which is 7. So it's very reasonable. 7/8 minus 2/11 to get 9/18 is not very reasonable. I'm going to call it unreasonable. Because if I estimated this, right, I would bump this one up to 1, and I would bump this one down to 0, so 1 minus 0 equals 1. So my estimate should be closer to just 1 whole, knowing that that's not accurate then. Again, reasonable or unreasonable, 3/8 plus 4/5 to be 7/40. It's going to be unreasonable. It's unreasonable because if I think about my numbers, I might bump this 3/8 up to 1/2 and bump 4/5 to 1 whole. My estimate is 1 and 1/2. So 7/40 is nowhere near 1 and 1/2. So I know my answer is not accurate. It could not be possible. My next one, this one is reasonable. It is reasonable that 4 1/3 minus 1 5/6 would be about 2 1/2. Again, I could take 4 1/3, I could make it 4 1/2, subtract out. I'm going to bump this up to 2. I get 2 1/2 exactly. Even if I had dropped this and said 4 minus 2, I would still be at 2 whole. Okay. All right, so when you guys use estimation, think about using estimation to double check your answers, see if they're even reasonable or possible. We'll see you guys in class.